the timing of this may be a little weird, but when we started the season, it was kind of like a hot mess of like what track is open, like who's all racing in what class. There's been a lot of changeover. So we figured we'd do our predictions for WISSOTA National Points specifically, since it's a smaller region and IMCA is kind of this big gargantuan giant. And so we're going to start with the late models and who has their prediction for a national champion. And you can repeat the same one as someone else because sometimes it can get slim pickings depending on what you focus on. So who wants to go first on the late models?
I will.
Go ahead.
I'm just
Go ahead,
I'll go with Pat Dorr. He's got 5 wins already this year. And you're only racing to 20. So we're about a quarter of the way through, if not a little over a quarter of the way through. If he keeps this average up, he can't be beat. And the wins that he's taking are over larger fields of cars, so you get the additional like one more point for field size or whatever, or cars in attendance or whatever it is. And just looking at some of the other names I got written down here, I got about 6 guys that I think could play if certain factors play out in their favor or just play out through the season. I think they could really make an impact or a bona fide run for it. But I'll throw them up after everybody goes through. That way you guys don't have to sift through my mess.
Sounds good. Becca or John, do you want to go next on late models?
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Becca.
Go ahead, Becca.
My pick for 2023 is Chad Becker. He's already got 6 wins on the season, so the race to 20 is a little closer with Chad Becker.
Let me, can I throw a counterpoint into the 6 wins?
Sure.
Of those 6 wins, 2 are Tri-State Late Model Series wins, which do not count towards WISSOTA points.
This is true. Yep.
But that means he has 4, so he's right along there with Pat at a point where he is definitely in a favorable position.
You got me there. But yes, he does have a couple wins to his name this year and is doing pretty well at his pace and his part of the country. I think he'll be a threat at the end.
You know who also has 4 late model wins right now? And I'm going to throw this name out there. I'm going to throw Tyler Peterson in the mix.
Yep.
Because I realize it's his first year in the late model, but having 2 Challenge Series wins at Madison and Casino, and he's already like 20% of the way to 20 wins. I don't know if he's going to race enough to get to 20 wins necessarily, but that's a name you got to watch, especially now that it's only 20 shows, the best 20 shows that you're taking. And his first race, I think his first race was up in Devil's Lake where he got a top 5 after starting in the way back. And so he's capable of ripping off some really good runs in the late model.
I think I've asked this before, but do track championships count towards like bonus points for national points?
I
thought
know if they do. I don't know if they do in WISSOTA.
I know they count for that in IMCA, and I think they limit a driver to 2 track championships, but just curious if that's a WISSOTA thing as well.
I'm leaning towards no.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'm going to throw Tyler Peterson's name in the mix on national championship contender. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm actually going to stick to the same route as Becca. I think Chad Becker's going to be really tough. And here's the reason why I say that is because with just the amount of experience that Chad has at the tracks that he runs weekly, and he can actually get 3 WISSOTA shows in a week, he's going to rack up those wins and be able to get into that championship hunt. I agree with Jessup as well. I think Pat Dorr is going to be very, very, very strong this year. But the one things I want to say too is probably the different variety of tracks that Pat is running on as well are different than even the tracks that Chad runs, because Chad has the ability to stay more local and run those tracks and then venture out during the big show season, which typically is what he does, and then he can rack up those wins. So I think it's going to be interesting because I think Pat's going to be right up there with it, and I think Chad's going to be right up there with it, and I think that's going to where you're probably going to have your, maybe from a WISSOTA late model standpoint, your West versus East for the championship battle. And I think that's going to be very interesting this year with only 20 shows.
Absolutely. What are the names that you have, Jessup?
Well, other names, I'm looking all over. I got a few surprise names, I think. I think Danny Vang could be an issue if
Mhm.
he gets hot over on the east side of WISSOTA. He's got more tracks at his disposal to use if he wishes to, if Pat allows him to. He's if you think about it, every other week he'll have up to 4 tracks that he can race in one weekend. So in 1 month he can hit 20 races if 18 races, I think, if everything goes right. Um, and I'm going off of numbers from WISSOTA's national points, and he's already got 2 wins. Chad Becker was on my list. Kevin Burdick is another individual from the east side who
That's
has
one I
been
was
running.
thinking.
He runs very hard, and he's already up to 3 wins so far this year, and he's chasing down that Superior, Proctor, and Hibbing season points fund uh, points battle, and that's 3 tracks that are in his wheelhouse that he's had success at, and that gives him 3 tracks just about every weekend to compete to. So he's looking at about, I'm going to say not 15 every month, but about 12 to 15 races a month just with those 3 tracks alone. So he's got another 45 tracks to get, or not tracks, but races to get through. The other name for North Dakota that I was kind of, well, maybe I call him North Dakota, but he may not be currently, but is Cole Schill.
Mhm.
Here's the thing. Cole has gone over to McLean and he's won over there. And with the 2 races this week, I can see him doubling down there to quickly pull him up into about a 4-win range right now. And if he's sitting at 4 wins by the end of this week, that's going to be a pretty good spot to be in for points wise. And he also has quite a few around where he lives that he can choose and pick from. And I think that'll help him as well. And the final person I got is Jordan Tollickson. Now, here he's more of my dark horse pick, but if he chooses to stay at his local tracks, like that southwest corner of Minnesota, basically, I think he could rattle off quite a few wins down there. And if he does a little traveling here and there to pick up or maybe cherry pick a win or two, he could definitely find himself in the top 10 by the end of the season.
Didn't like the term cherry picking.
What do
Point
you call it?
stocking. There we go.
Thank you.
Point stocking. That's what we term. Those are all very, very good contenders. I agree with all of those.
So I'm gonna go a couple different route here as well, because I've got a couple more on my list. So I think one driver that you have to watch from South Dakota area, there's probably 2 of them that have been strong in the points battles here over the last couple of years. Is Josh Gorcheski has been one that's been very strong. So I think you need to watch him, especially if he gets hot on a hot streak, because him and Becker have been going at it for the last couple of years down there in the South Dakota reigns. You also have to watch Cole Saring if Cole runs more local WISSOTA shows as well. I know he's been running a lot of tri-state shows, bigger shows, other sanctioning bodies. So he's another one to watch from the South Dakota area. On the north side, there's some drivers that I think you want to keep an eye on. If Dustin Strand gets hot, he's going to throw his name right in the mix because he's already a past champion of the WISSOTA late models. So for national side, so I think you need to watch him. You always have to keep an eye on Shane Edgington. Edgington is always tough, especially with how much he travels and races different tracks. I think he's one that you're going to have to watch as well, especially if he gets on a hot streak. And then the final driver that I actually just did a little bit of research on here, because he's had kind of a maybe quiet start, but a really strong start when you look at his numbers, and that's Mike Gresseth. Because Mike has run 8 shows. His worst finish right now is 11th. So he's had 7 top 10s already out of those 8 shows in WISSOTA land, with the win just this past week. So I think that's one thing that you're gonna have to watch for too, is kind of to see how Mike does. Because I mean, obviously defending champion of the NLRA. So I mean, back-to-back champion of the NLRA. So I think it's one area that you're gonna have to watch with Mike because Mike runs that series and is very strong in it. And if he gets on a hot streak, he could rattle off some wins as well and just put his name right into the mix for a national champion.
Yeah, and we have so many names for the late models just because that whole switch from 30 shows to 20 is just opens the door for so many formidable contenders across the entire WISSOTA landscape. And so it's going to be really interesting, especially when we get into late July, early August, and see where the points stand and see kind of who all is going to really make that run for national points. So those are the late model predictions. We'll move into modifieds. Becca, you go first on modified predictions.
All right. I'll just name one, and then we can always go back and come back and name more. So my top guy right now to watch for is Shane Shabrowski. He's got 5 wins in that WISSOTA modified so far this season, and he's off to a great start.
Solid pick. John, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. One driver that's been traveling a lot this year is Joey Thomas. And Joey's had a very, very, very strong start to his season. So I think you need to keep an eye on Joey, especially with just how well he's been running at a variety of tracks. I mean, he's been traveling to KRA, down to obviously Cheyenne, now down to Casino kind of weekly, as well as even going over to I-94 in some of those facilities as well. So I think you need to keep an eye on Joey Thomas. He kind of came into his own a little bit last year, especially within the WISSOTA modified ranks. And he's definitely a driver I think you're going to have to contend with this year. He's already got 4 wins on the season. So I think you're going to have to watch for Joey.
That was my guy too. I'm going with Joey Thomas as well. I mean, he's undefeated right now at Casino Speedway. That's a really tough place to win, and going 3 for 3 to start the year is a pretty stout feat. And so Joey Thomas is my guy, knowing that he travels quite a bit and he's been competitive wherever he's gone. And so that's going to be my pick as well. Jessup.
Well, those are good picks, but I am going to kick it back to my old stomping grounds, and I'm going to say one Brandon Kopp.
Oh, okay.
He has 5 wins so far this year, and 4 of the 5 wins have came from different tracks, and a pool of 4 different wins out of 5. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna say Brandon Kopp's gonna be my guy to ride with for this year. He's always been a pretty strong contender. If he can keep everything together and keep the good luck going for him. Just double checking here.
I actually thought you were going to say Johnny Broking.
No, you want to hear? We're talking about drivers with statistically good facts. John mentioned that Gresseth was the lowest he's finished was 11th in 8 races.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we throw out 2 DNSs or did not starts in 14 races, he has 13 top 10s, 11 top 5s, 5 wins, and the lowest he's finished this year is 11th.
That's pretty good too.
So Brandon Kopp's going to be my guy. I hope he continues on. I hope I didn't give the Pickering jinx.
I'll go back over to Becca. Did you have a couple more you wanted to mention before we move on to super stocks?
I had Joey Thomas on my list, but then John was the next one to go, and he picked him. So, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. So that'll be another interesting battle.
I think Mason too, you obviously have to keep Tyler Peterson's name in there because it sounded like this year the late model might have not been his primary focus. It was probably still going to be the mod. And obviously back-to-back championships there too. So I think you need to keep Tyler's name in the mix. I know he hasn't had a super strong start to the season, but I think it's one area to where he's going to be probably pretty good as we get a little bit farther into the season. Johnny Brokins was definitely the one that was on my list too because he had a strong weekend this past weekend, so he's going to be one on there too. And then one that's maybe a little bit of a dark horse for me out there, but I've seen him kind of run this year, and he's had a really good start to the season, but now he's kind of been kind of quiet, is Lee Gross. I think if he gets hot, he's going to rattle off some wins as well.
Yeah, those are all some good, solid contenders as well.
I'm going to throw one more name up there. He hasn't had one of his better seasons yet, but his results are getting a lot better here, and they've been really good since about May 20th. That's going to be Mike Stearns. He's a perennial power. He's drawn pretty much at whatever track his trailer shows up at. If you throw out a couple one DNF this past weekend, and 2 bad races at I-94, he has a second, a fifth, a sixth, a third, a second, a sixth, and then a first, and then a sixth, going back to May 19th. If you throw out those 3 races, he's had a pretty quiet but strong season. So I don't think it's going to take him too much longer to find victory lane and start burning up the wins.
That's true. Yeah. Cause those first couple races at I-94, yeah, they were not good for him.
No.
No, he definitely wasn't looking like the Mike Stearns we know, but yeah, he's trending in the right direction. I'd agree with that. Super stocks, John, who's your guy in the super stocks, or driver, I should say?
Okay, I'm going to start this one off, and you guys are actually probably going to be a little bit surprised by this because I'm going to leave maybe one of the main drivers on the table. But I'm going with Trevor Nelson. And the reason why I'm going with Trevor Nelson is because the past couple of years, obviously, it's been a lot of Shane Sabraski in the super stocks. And last year at the 100, Trevor beat Shane at the 100 in a really, really, really good race at the WISSOTA 100. And I just think that built his confidence because in the races that we have seen him and Shane out this year, it's basically been those two kind of going at it for the wins. With Trevor coming out on top sometimes and Shane coming out on top. So I think Trevor's going to be really strong this year in the Superstock National Points race.
Dang, you might have almost changed my mind, but I'll go next. I was going to say Dexton Cook. I think he's been tired of following the 7A around, and he's been really trying to chase that 30-win mark throughout the last few seasons. And he's really, I think, determined to try to get that done. And honestly, Shane probably hasn't really looked like Shane Sabraski the last several years in the Superstock. He's kind of been like a hit or miss type races for him this year. And so I'm going with the 78K of Dexton Cook. Jessup.
Well, I'm going to leave Shane Sabraski for Becca so she has someone to pick.
We can repeat, remember.
I'm going to go back north. I'm going north of the border here.
Oh, this is a good
Cole
one.
Trenowski.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pull him up real quick because I looked at him earlier. And I know he's got at least 4 wins. Okay. Wow. He's got a lot of races under him already this year.
Yes,
I did not realize. Or is this counting? Oh, this is double counting. Okay. So he's got 4 wins under him already this year. Cole is actually, if he really wanted to, he is in one of a very unique position compared to most WISSOTA Superstock drivers. Thunder Bay or Thunder City Speedway, Raceway, whatever they call it. Never got to go there yet, but they race Wednesday nights. So that's one night. If he really wants to go, he could go to Grand Rapids the following night and Thursday. Then he can go choose from wherever he wants to go on Friday night. But let's just assume not Helverline, but Amsoil Speedway. It's not Amsoil, Gondik Law. And then they go to Hibbing and then back to Proctor. So he can race 5 times a week if he really wants to. And with that amount, if he's racing Midwest mods now, if he just puts that away, and focus strictly on your super stock program and just knock it out of the park and just get to those 40 wins, because you're going to be given basically 20 to 25 races a week, or not a week, but a month. In 3 months, that's 75 races.
That's a good point. Yeah, 5 straight nights of racing.
I'm just going off of the volume game here. If he really just said, you know what, I want to take this. I'm not saying he doesn't want to. He's not taking it seriously. But if he really wanted to hammer home just one division, he could get about, in a 3-month span, close to 70, 75 races in that time period. So he should be close enough to hit that 40 win mark.
Yeah. Very good point. It's another solid pick. Go ahead, Becca.
Well, I'm a little offended you guys would think so little of me and just leave me Shane Zabrowski, but he actually was not my number one pick for this class. It was actually Dexton Cook. He's off to a strong and fast start this year. I do listen to the One to Go show from most weeks, not every week, and I did hear Ryan Aho say that Shane Zabrowski doesn't look like the same Shane Zabrowski of years past in the Superstock class. So although he is doing really well, he is currently third in the national points, but Dexton Cook is my pick for national points right now. And he's got 5 wins on the feature out of 11 starts, doing pretty darn well on that race to 20. But Shane Zabrowski, I think you just have to keep an eye out for him. Although he's not clicking off wins as quickly as he may have in the past, I think you just got to keep an eye out for him just because he is such a veteran driver. Yes, exactly. He'll probably be there right at the end. He's just not clicking the wins off as quickly as other drivers right now. But my driver to watch right now is Dexton Cook.
There we go.
Go
ahead, Jessup. Do you have something else to add?
Oh, I got a couple more guys.
Too. Go ahead, Jessup. You go first. I'll go next.
Okay. My next one, I'm going to say Terrence Spacek.
Yep,
that's another good one.
That was one of mine too.
6 wins, and I'm just throwing some dates out here. From May 19th to June 3rd, he rattled off 6 straight first place finishes. Now he's cooled off just a smidge, and when I say cooled off, he has a DNF at the Granite City Motor Park during the Fastlane Superstock Series, which they had over, I think they said around 33 or somewhere over 30.
Yeah, still over 30 at that track.
But he's racing against, it started last Thursday at Race Lake, and they had over 40.
They had
that
over 50,
race.
I think, that night.
So he finished 6th out of 50. Mm-hmm. The next night, Red Cedar, same series, finished
they had
2nd.
53 that night.
Mm-hmm. And the next night, Ogilvy got 7th. So he's finishing pretty much in the top 10 every race. And if you knock out that 120, the one DNF, well, okay, besides any DNF that he has not finished lower than 7th. That's going to be another one of mine. Go ahead, John.
So another one of mine that comes to mind, especially from the Superstock range, is you have to keep Dustin Nelson in your thought process. I think he's one that's always up there from a win perspective, national points perspective, and everything else. So he's one that I think you need to keep in the back of your mind in that number 46 machine. For sure. Tim Johnson is back in a Superstock this year. You can never count out Tim, no matter what he runs in. So I think he's somebody that you need to definitely keep in mind as well. And then one of the drivers that has kind of come into his own the last couple of years is Dylan Nelson. Mm-hmm. So the 25 machine has been kind of right there, kind of like a dark horse, I would say, for me, is Dylan, because he's always right there in the battle up front. And he's super consistent at times. And I think he's going to be somebody that is definitely going to be in the contention for national points, at least for the top 10. And who knows, he might even be right there in the top 3.
I was going to say, he was last year's Fastlane Superstock Series champion too.
Yep.
So those are all good names to add to the list as well. Now to a couple of classes we're way more familiar with, I would say. Midwest Modifieds. And Mr. Beamont's Pack the Track, I'll give you first crack at this.
There's a lot to pick from here.
There is, yes.
There's a lot. But I'm going to say Matt Heinzerling. Just looking at it earlier today, he's already rattled off, according to the points of WISSOTA, he's got 3 wins already. In 13 races, he's got 12 top 10s, 10 top 5s, and 3 wins. So pretty strong runner, and I think he's going to have some trouble with the Nickel family along with the Johnsons. But if he keeps racing at this rate, he should do pretty good.
Good pick. Becca, go next.
You're mute.
And
My number one pick to watch for this year would be Lucas Rodin. He's fast no matter what he races. He's doing double duty this year, racing in IMC modified as well as the WISSOTA Midwest modified. But was it Memorial Day weekend? He raced 4 times that particular weekend and got 3 wins right off the bat. So I think if he can find just those really long weekends, he'll rack up the wins. Not a problem for him. As fast as he's been at Jamestown and Lisbon, and he'll rattle those wins off. But he'll definitely be someone to watch at the very end. So Lucas Rodin is my number one pick to watch.
A solid pick. Homer pick too. I'm just kidding. John, go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's actually kind of funny. I was actually talking to one of Lucas's, you guys are gonna laugh at me. I was talking to one of Lucas's crew guys one at Jamestown. I was like, why aren't you with Lucas? Because he was running over at King of the Dirt. And he said, oh, I was on call this weekend, so I had to stay back. I was like, okay. I said that makes more sense from that piece of it. But I think the Friday night before King of the Dirt, we kind of had a preview a little bit, maybe at I-94 of maybe the national points battle. And it was between Lucas and Zach Benson. And I'm going to pick Zach Benson because Zach has been strong the last couple of years. And this year has looked really good, and he's traveling quite a bit as well this year. So he's been hitting a variety of different tracks and has been winning at those tracks as well. So Zach is kind of my pick on this one directly for this year, just because of how he's been running and the level of competition that he runs with weekly. Usually one of his home tracks is right around the Ogilvy area. They always have strong fields of any type of car class out there. So I feel like that's going to be something that'll benefit him no matter what this season.
Another solid pick. Oh, were you going to say something, Jessup?
yeah, I'm gonna change over to Zach. He's already at 8 wins.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
He could legitimately hit the 40 win mark.
He could. Yep. If he
Probably
continues on this pace, he definitely could.
Probably before invitational season.
That wouldn't be a complete surprise. So, I mean, before Jessup switched, we all had 4 different people because I'm picking a different guy right now. My guy that I'm picking, probably not someone that's on everyone's radar right now, but Corey Stark has had a really good season. He's raced 12 shows, 4 wins, 11 top 5s, 12 top 10s with a worst finish of 6th this last Saturday.
Yep.
So he's been traveling up to like Norman County the last couple of weeks. He won the opening night there, lost by like a barely an inch to Matt Scow last Thursday. So depending on if he decides to travel up to Norman County every Thursday or even Cheyenne or go over to KRA, he'll race like 3 times a week, I'm sure. And, you know, with the hot start he's gotten, he looks really fast this year. I think he could put himself in a national contention as well. So Corey Stork is my pick. Any other names you all want to throw out at all?
I've got some.
Yeah,
for sure.
We got a couple.
So,
go ahead, John.
Obviously Mike Nichols is somebody that you're gonna have to contend with. I mean, he's always up there. He is super smooth with how he drives that car and everything else. He had a great battle with his brother down at Casino this past week, and that was just, I watched the replay of that race, and that was really good between him and Tommy. So I think Mike is going to be one that you're definitely going to have to contend with. Austin Hunter is somebody that is always a strong runner. He can crack off a ton of wins if he gets hot in a hot streak. So I think Austin's going to be one that you're going to have to look over to. I've got 2 more. Tony Leichner is racing a lot more again this year, like he was a couple years ago when he was in the National Points Hut against Lucas Rodin. So I think Tony is one that you're going to have to watch for. Always up front, always a strong contender, no matter what track he shows up on directly from there. And my final one on here too, that I think you're going to have to kind of keep an eye on a little bit. It's maybe more of a dark pick, or maybe a dark horse pick a little bit on this one too. Is probably Adam Brotherton. He has had a very decent start to the season. He runs a lot of shows, a lot of local ones, recommend there too, but he racks up the wins too and is definitely always right there in contention for the top 5 and top 10.
There we go.
I would add one person. I'm going to go back north of the border again.
Okay.
I'm going to say David Simpson.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just looking at.
I'm going to
That's a
just
good
say
one.
it again because him and Cole have the same thing going in their favor, they have a plethora of races to choose from if they so wish to, chase one individual thing. The problem is they're chasing each other in the same classes. But just looking, if you take out his DNFs, even for both, for DNFs and his did not starts for both for the Super Stocks and Midwest Mod, he hasn't finished lower than 7th, and what would be about 15 events.
Pretty good, especially
Yeah,
when you think
I
about
agree.
how many Midwest mods they race against in Thunder Bay alone.
Over
Yeah.
40 every week.
Insane.
Crazy.
Making those picks every Wednesday.
That is pretty crazy. That's another good addition. Sweet. So then
Yeah.
moving into street stocks.
Well, Becca had some more, Mason.
Oh, did you have more,
Yeah,
Becca? I'm
Becca,
sorry.
go Becca.
No, John stole them all as usual.
Yeah, John and Jessup stole all the ones I was thinking of too.
I only added one.
Here's what I find funny about this is that Becca was over there writing down her names, on who she was gonna go through for the night. I haven't written down a thing on this. So I just go based on looking at memory stuff, also with just the variety of drivers that are out there in each class.
Oh, Rain Man.
Rayman in full effect. Street stocks. Becca, go first on this one.
I have been super impressed so far with Braden Brower. He is off to a hot streak. What?
I too can read WISSOTA's national point website.
Yes.
I know you are.
I am not.
I know you are.
These people I picked off of my own.
Mm-hmm.
See? Go ahead.
Continue, Becca.
Anyways, he's had 12 starts, 5 wins. He's been traveling all over. I think he's going to make a great run for the national championship this year. So Braden Brower, my number 1 pick for your 2023 champion.
Solid first pick. John, go next.
Hey, I'm going with the Wolverine, Justin Vogel. He races a ton of shows. He's always up front. He's always a contender for either a win or a top 5. And obviously, if you can't get to 30 wins, the seconds, thirds, fourths are huge. And Justin is one of those guys that has always been in the national points hunt for at least the last 5 years.
And I agree with John on this, even though the wins haven't kind of shown up as of yet. I just think that once Justin gets on a run, he's going to be really tough to stop. Especially like these last couple weekends following the street stock tour have been kind of hit or miss, kind of basically like bad draws for one, and trying to move through the field with a very stout field of cars in nearly all the racetracks. And so he still finds himself kind of in the top 5 at the very end. But once he gets like maybe outside these tour races a little bit, or kind of more towards his home tracks that the tour comes at, he's going to be really, really tough to stop.
Well, and that's one place I was going to go, Mason, too. I feel like he's been top 5 at probably not his strongest tracks by far with the tour. And he'll admit that, I believe, as well. That Giant has been a track that has definitely not been one of his strongest tracks. Jamestown has not been one of his strongest tracks by any means. And Brown County has also not been one of his strongest tracks. So I think for him to be able to get two top 5s out of the weekend this past weekend was definitely a positive for him.
Yep. So Vogel is my pick as well for 2023 champion. And Jessup, who do you have for your pick?
I'm just picking people on the fringes of WISSOTA. I'm picking out on the edge of WISSOTA country, and I'm going to continue this fringe pick mentality. And I'm going to go to a man who's been traveling a lot and has been visiting us a lot, and I'm going to say Jeremy Castro. He's already put a lot of miles on. He's already told us a handful of times he's looking for a points championship this year, hopefully. And, he's got to go where the tracks are racing. And I wouldn't call it point stocking, but the nights that he does have options, I say, I definitely think he's got a good chance at it. He's last I checked, according to WISSOTA's national points, he's got 4 wins. Checking on the good old My Race Pass, if it ever loads. He's got 5 wins in 17 races so far. 10 or 15 top 10s, 12 top 5s. Yeah, he's doing all right. He's even picked up a win at the Dakota Speedway, which for you Eastern folk who don't ever want to come out and race a very nice smooth track, you're missing out on some excellent competition and a great experience. It's probably one of the more driver demanding tracks in WISSOTA, where it takes a very talented wheelman to successfully navigate the corners and the smooth surface that we have.
Well, Jeremy has to travel. It's been raining like every other weekend out in Montana. So
His neck of the woods, he has not got away from the rain. And then, for instance, like this weekend, when you look at it, Billings is running on Saturday. They're not running streets, so he's likely going to have to travel someplace again this weekend too. And we'll
Hi,
see.
Jeremy. Hi,
We'll see.
Jim.
Exactly right. Hey, we're racing
You can
again on
bring
Dakota,
Troy with
Jeremy, so
you.
come on over.
Bring
So
Troy.
so that one too, and bring Troy with you, and bring maybe a couple more with, like, bring Robert with you, and he can come over, and yep. So maybe Corey Craver needs to come back over again. He's been over here before, so yep. But
well, we've listed the top 4 in national points right now. Any other drivers, guys, that we should be looking out for?
oh, of course,
I'm throwing
got
a name
some.
out there before anyone else does. I'm throwing
Go
Maria
ahead,
Brooks.
Mason.
I'm throwing Maria Brooks
Maria?
in the mix.
Yes,
Oh, that was the
I
person
agree.
I was picking,
Maria's a good one.
She is a good pick.
Yeah, she's
So
been
Maria's a
really
good one on there.
fast.
I was
So
gonna say
go ahead,
Nick
Jessup.
Trainer.
I'll let you go, and then I'll counter you.
Nick Trainer,
Nick Trainer's good too.
Wisconsin.
That's one on my list for a dark horse.
Hey, look at me, just hitting my French picks still.
So Nick has such a strong start, and one thing that's unusual is Nick doesn't usually travel a whole lot, but he's been traveling with the Street Stock Tour, and he's been winning against huge cars of fields. So
Yeah.
I think or huge field cars, I should say. But that's actually been something that's been pretty sweet to see from his side. Jessup, another one on my list is Kyle Jeanette.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a good pick.
if he can get onto a roll with him and Jeff, and those two traveling together, because sometimes they travel together to different tracks, I think he could be one that could really, really, really play a factor into the national points. And Kyle was right there last year on winning the 100. I mean, he was inches away of winning the 100 last year before the rain came.
Yep. I got a couple North Dakotans here. I would say Tucker Peterson's been looking pretty strong. I think it's basically going to come down to how much he wants to run this year. Another
Agreed.
person in that boat is going to be Trey Hess. And then this past week's Jamestown winner, Casey Usatis, those 3 are strong North Dakota guys. The only problems that they run into is if they're going to go for national points, they're going to have to go through each other to get to national points.
Yeah. Plus,
And
field
that's a
size
tough
is going to
field,
be something
yeah.
on that one too. And some of the car fields that they, or the fields, God, I can't talk today. Some of the fields of cars that they race against are below that amount for show points. So with them not getting maximum show points, that kind of hurts them a little bit as well.
The only thing with that though, John, is if it's not getting the maximum number of show points, like for field size, they're still getting the same amount for feature win points. So
Correct.
That's the only saving grace, because like one of my picks had mentioned to us, truly it is a race to 40. If you can get to 40 wins, you're pretty much guaranteed 30. If you can get to 30 wins, you're pretty much guaranteed a championship. So even if you're taking against smaller field sizes, but you're winning consistently each night, that's the saving grace. But if somebody else is getting there, then you better start praying that more cars show up.
Exactly. And that's where I could see to where, like, the Justin Vogel area, or even, we saw last year with Kyle Dykhoff. They got quite a few wins, and they were against larger fields of cars, so that's where it kind of benefited them in the long run, because of the fact of the matter that they had those points to go with it. I'm going to throw 2 more of our guys in there that we have from a local stance. The one driver that I truly wish would travel more, I'm actually going to throw his name out there because I think he could definitely have a chance at national points just with how strong he is definitely Hunter Domagala. If he could travel more, I truly think Hunter could be a threat just because of the fact of the matter of how much he's either in the top 10 at all the tracks that he goes to. Dakota Speedway's got figured out. So I mean that's one driver that's definitely got it figured out on there too. Um, Three other drivers, I'm just going to throw their names out from a local perspective. You can't forget about your guys from, the eastern part of the North Dakota state. You've got Johnny Carter, past champion, brand new car, but he's looked super, super strong so far, and that car just hasn't really had any luck on his side. Kyle Anderson has run quite well so far to start the season out. And then I'm even going to throw Jeff Hellman in that mix because Jeff has run strong at both Jamestown and also at Mandan. And he's looked really good, and we'll see if he travels more as as the season comes across on that one too. And then Mason, a dark horse pick for me that has looked really well this year from the Minnesota side has been Jeff Ekdahl. Ekdahl has looked
Yes.
really good so far this year, and has racked up a couple of wins already to start his season against pretty good fields of cars. So I think Ekdahl is another one that's going to be tough.
Absolutely. And I was going to touch on Tucker Peterson a little bit too. He's been racing a lot more. He's been traveling a lot more. He's been having some gremlins with the car the last few weeks. And so he's been running strong, but just hasn't been able to finish the races. So once he finishes those races, I think he's going to really skyrocket up those national points as well. So that's going to be another interesting battle to follow. And even though we're not familiar with the Pure Stocks Mod 4s and Hornets, going to touch on them a little bit and give them some love. Pure Stocks, Jessup.
Oh, dang. I did not write anyone down. Give me.
Let's
just go with Mod
if you want me
4s
to.
first and then go to Pure Stocks.
Okay, Mod 4s. Go ahead.
Okay, who's going to go first? But Jessup, you mod first.
I'll call Dean Larson.
Dean
There he
Larson's
is.
is good
I mean,
pick.
he's only leading by over, like 800 points right now.
Well, and he's traveling so far out west for a lot of
I
these
know,
races.
that's the funny part.
He's got 13 wins in 21 races. In the 21 races, he's got 20 top fives and 21 top tens.
And I think these three classes do their top 20 shows.
Well, needless to say, Dean's already there.
I think Dustin Holquist will have something to say about that too. He's one of the quicker Mod 4 guys, especially in Minnesota, and he travels around quite a bit. I mean, he races KRA, can race Princeton, Bemidji if he wants to, Granite City when they run. What's their Saturday track? Ogilvy. So he's got plenty of opportunities to put together some good race wins.
He's got other options. He's got Princeton, Brainerd.
Yeah, Brainerd. That was the other one I was thinking.
Bemidji.
Yep.
So yeah, there's options out there for them. John, you got anyone else?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, one of my picks that I always think is up there is Tommy Baldwin. I think he is somebody that you always have to look at in the 81 machine. A couple years ago, I mean, he ran away with the national points a couple years ago, along with the 100 win to go along with that too. And then Tyler Larson is another one that I'm going to keep an eye on, just because of the fact of the matter that obviously Dean and Tyler, sometimes they'll travel together, but I think this will be where we'll kind of keep an eye on the Larsons.
I would also add Tommy Pogones. Is it Pogones?
Pagones. Yes. He's been doing really good.
In 15 races, 4 wins, 11 top 5s, and 14 top 10s. It's pretty solid. But I'm still going to say Dean Larson's going to have 20 wins probably before June is done.
That wouldn't surprise me either. Becca, did you have anyone else you wanted to add?
Nope.
I'd throw Tyler Larson's name in the mix. He's been getting the better of the people, especially down at KRA. He's got a really fast car. Jessup mentioned he's had a really nice paint scheme back when we were talking about paint schemes. And so Tyler Larson's also another guy I think you need to watch as well. Hornets, to give Jessup a little more time to research pure stocks. Hornet predictions. So I think I can kick this off. I can go with, let's say, either Justin Schlitzky, because he was last year's national champion. He's always a very fast runner. Also has a bunch of options in central Minnesota to race that. So he can race 3 to 4 times a week. So I think I'm going to go with him once again for the national points contention. And Becca, Mason, do you have anyone for Hornets?
Okay, so I'll
John,
go next.
Who do you got for?
So I'll definitely go next on this one with the Hornet class. So I've got a couple. but I'm going to go with my top pick. Carter Matthews is leading points right now. He's had a strong start to his season. He's actually been traveling quite a bit too. So I'm going to stick with Carter.
Huh.
Jessup, you got
I'm
anyone
gonna go
from
with
maybe-
I'm gonna go with someone again from my area.
I was gonna say
Because they run, I got a couple guys from my area that I would say have a pretty decent shot at it. Justin Barsnez, he's always been consistently strong. And then my other one is AJ House, who's having a very nice season so far this year as well. And if you really want to get further into it, you lady fans, you should be cheering for Ellen Lang. She's currently in the top 10
I
for
agree.
WISSOTA points. So those are some of the people I'd watch out for the Hornets.
I think Adam Vanderstein is also another one that you need to follow along with. He races quite a bit, travels quite a bit. I always see him down at the Casino Speedway in particular on a Sunday night, and it's kind of that Wilmer Montevideo area where he can get a bunch of races under his belt. So
Yeah, so dumb story about Adam here. Every time I go to pick, or last year, every time I went to pick, I would just casually be going through it, and I'd see his name, and for some reason I'm not paying close enough attention for half the season. I see his name, I'm Adam Van Destroyer or something like that, Destroyer or something. That's how I always knew him. And then I actually heard someone say his name, and I'm like, that's not how you say his name. And then I looked at his actual name, and I'm like, holy crap, I have been identifying this individual by the wrong name for at least a year and a half now.
could be a good nickname that could catch on. I mean, if he gets on a tear, he kind of destroys the field, destroys the competition. So we'll see. I don't know if Adam watches the show.
If there's any announcers listening or watching, pick up on that and just run with it.
Well, if I ever end up announcing or Victory Lane, like down at I-94, if he shows up, I'll call him the Van Destroyer or whatever. Kidding.
Van Destroyer. He
Not gonna
destroys
do
all
that.
vans.
Then last WISSOTA class is Pure Stocks. Jessup, you got a couple Pure Stocks in your neck of the woods that could really put together a title hunt.
Yeah, there's quite a few guys that you could really look at. I know currently Wisconsin's Ryan Olson's pretty strong. The one that comes to my attention a lot is Aaron Bernick out of Duluth. He's been having a pretty good season. A couple other names that I'm pretty familiar with is Austin Carlson out of Cohasset, and lately I've been following a little closer, but that's the 10th place guy of Billy Binkley, and those are the guys that I'm more familiar with, and I guess I forgot Jake Smith as well, but those are the ones I think, mainly because I see their names a lot, have a pretty good chance this year, and they're going to be the ones you're going to need to watch. And I bet the majority of them show up to Bemidji for their WISSOTA 100 kickoff deal.
Yep. Speaking of last year's WISSOTA 100 champion, and I'm going to pick Josh Berg for my pick for Pure Stocks. He's really fast. I mean, he races in Greenbush, Bemidji, very quick runner out there. So that's my pick for Pure Stocks.
Mason, that was mine too. Josh Berg was my pick too. Just because of the fact of the matter of how he's ran over this past year and then in past years as well in this class. And Corey is no longer in the Pure Stock class, so it kind of opens up the door a little bit from the championship piece of it, because he was somebody that was always up there in the title contention.
Well, and another guy that you kind of have to watch out for. His dad racked up a lot of wins previous years, but Chasten Finkbone is also a very fast runner as well. Got a very sharp looking car too. I think that car is really cool. And so those are some more, one more name that you can probably throw into the hat as well.
Neat.
So that is our WISSOTA national points predictions. We'll see how accurate we are once the end of the season rolls around, or if we have to make any modifications come like the end of August or something like that, because still a long ways out, but a lot can happen in the span of a couple months.